take a look at how we got there. This is the crazy history of Minus World ending speedruns. And now a word from this video's sponsor, Rocket. Earlier this year, I signed up for a streaming service just to watch one show. I meant to cancel it right away, but I forgot. Months later, I realized I've been throwing money away. I bet that's happened to you before too. And if so, you should be using Rocket Money. Rocket Money is the personal finance app that lets you cancel subscriptions, lower bills, and manage your money better. I like Rocket Money for canceling unwanted subscriptions. They safely and securely identify recurring charges and cancel subscriptions. You just tap a couple buttons and Rocket Money takes care of it. They can also negotiate bills on your app and analyze your spending habits to create a custom budget. Look, I think money is great. You can save up to $740 per year if you use the app's premium features. Join the over 5 million members of Rocket Money today. Go to rocketmoney.com/summoningsolve or click the link in the description to get started for free. That's rocketmoney.com/summoningsolve to get started for free. Thanks again to Rocket Money for sponsoring this video. Okay, first question to get out of the way. Does this really count as a speedrun? Are you actually beating the game? Well, no, you're not actually reaching the end, defeating Bowser, and rescuing the princess. But if you reach the end of -3, the game does act as though you beat it. You're sent back to the title screen, and once there, you can play second quest and select a world with the B button. These are both features that are only unlocked once you beat the game. So, as to whether you're really beating the game, that's up to you to decide. And if you'd like to argue about it in the comment section below, please feel free. But either way, it makes for a sick speedrun. It may seem trivial, but the saga that's about to unfold is anything but. And the origin of the category comes from the year 2013, when a game collector named Oatax purchased a Famicom disk system. He had seen two assisted speedruns of Minus World that players would kill the crowd and decided they would want to try it in real time. So on September 9th, 2013, Oatax told them there are only 5 levels in this game: 1-1, 1-2, -1, -2, and finally -3. So you have 5 levels to optimize as much as you possibly can. Here's how Oatax went about doing that. In 1-1, he ran ahead and picked up a mushroom. This was so he could do the Minus World clip later, which is only possible with Big Mario. He quickly finished the level and entered 1-2, where he picked up a fire flower. This let him clear enemies out of his way so he could make it through the stage while barely escaping. Finally, it was time to go to the Minus World. He came to a stop on top of the pipe, then carefully crouch jumped into the corner. For details on why this works and why the Minus World even exists, check out this video on YouTube. But basically, Mario lands on a specific part of this block where he can stand. After that, he's able to run right through the wall. Oatax did that, killed the piranha plant, and then was off to the Minus World. Level -1 is pretty strange. It's like level 1-3, except underwater with enemies from a castle level, complete with Princess Toadstool and Bowser. It makes for a convoluted looking stage, but the speedrun is pretty straightforward here. Oatax simply dodged enemies and swam to the end, reaching the underwater flagpole. Next up is -2, a stage identical to 7-3 from the main game. Oatax had to run across the bridges while being careful to avoid flying Cheep Cheeps and Koopas. And sometimes Cheep Cheeps can get in the way, but Oatax handled it beautifully and beat the level while barely hesitating. And now for level -3. This one is really weird. It's an underground version of the 4-4 castle level with underwater enemies like bloopers. Now normally, 4-4 is a maze where you have to take the correct path. If you take one of the top paths, you loop back to the start. But in -3, that pattern isn't active. and the top paths instead lead to a wall. There's no getting through that. So, O-Attacks had to navigate his way to the bottom, then he was home free to run to the end and touch the axe. That's all it took. 5 levels, and O-Attacks was done in 2 minutes and 45 seconds. For the first world record of the category, this was already looking pretty optimized. He barely slowed down anywhere, never got hit by anything.
Milestone reached. Train signals placed on train rails can control and improve train behavior.
Just kidding.
This helps to avoid events where multiple trains attempt to occupy the same physical location. For information related to earlier train events, please refer to your employee non-disclosure agreement.
The time save came from a couple spots. He grabbed the power-ups just the same, but at the end of 1-2, he came to a stop and did the minus world flip much quicker. It was enough to save him 5 frame rolls. What's a frame roll? Well, last year, a YouTuber named Beryllium, or something like that, tried to explain it, but he used bus skip, which is obviously cheating. So, here's a proper explanation from the reigning record holder. Super Mario Bros. Has something called the frame roll system. The game can only send you to the next level every 21 frames, or every 0.35 seconds. This amount of time is known as a frame roll. So in each level, you can only gain or lose time in frame rolls, increments of 0.35 seconds. Imagine a bus at the end of every level that leaves every 0.35 seconds. If you miss one, you'll have to wait for the next one. So that means if you want to save time in a level, you have to be fast enough to catch the next bus, or you won't gain anything. O-Attacks did the minus world clip fast enough that he gained an entire 5 frame rolls over his previous run. -1 and -2 were completely identical to the record, so entering -3, he had exactly a 1.75 second lead. But in -3, the frame rule system doesn't apply, since timing ends immediately upon touching the axe. So every frame saved or lost counts in this level. And O-Attacks had a brilliant new strategy. Instead of navigating through the maze, he just jumped up top and ran on the ceiling, all the way to the end of the level. Simple, but effective, and it saved another 1.5 seconds. That was 2 records in 2 days for O-Attacks. For the pioneer of real-time minus world ending speedruns, he'd done an excellent job. No mistakes, some clever strategies, and fantastic execution, culminating in a time of 2 minutes and 42 seconds. How much more could you really save across just 5 levels?
Pocket dimension inflated by utilizing luminous gel hydrology channeled through an etheric spigot. Some used to say this as impossible, but the meaning of that word has long since been removed from my dictionary.
Was Saradoc. A year later, he'd go on to take the any percent record from Andrew G. But now, in October 2013, he was just starting out, and he had some ideas on how to improve the minus world. The first idea was quite simple. There was no need to pick up the fire flower. While you need to be big to do the minus world clip, the fire flower is just for clearing out enemies, so there was no actual need to pick it up. Saradoc's second idea came from Happy Lee's TAS of the category, a strange trick at the end of -1. It looks like this. This is the full flagpole glitch. To end the level in Super Mario Bros., Mario first has to touch a flagpole, and then touch an invisible block in the castle to trigger the timer countdown. First the flagpole, then the block. But in certain scenarios, it's possible to clip into this block and grab the flagpole at a lower height, then bounce out of it and contact this block instead. It instantly triggers the timer countdown, with no need to slide down and walk all the way to the castle block. Now, you can't just jump and grab the flagpole this slow. You need very specific conditions for this to work. The most famous example is in 8-2, where you can bounce off a bullet bill just low enough to grab the flagpole in the block. Here, it's commonly referred to as the bullet bill glitch. But as it turns out, it also works with swimming physics. By doing a frame-perfect A-press on the way to the pole, you'll clip into the block and perform the full flagpole glitch. And the full flagpole glitch saves 8 frame rules. This was too good to pass up. Saradoc began implementing it in his runs, and on October 21st, he had a run to -1 that nailed it. But then, one problem with the full flagpole glitch. You have to land immediately next to the flagpole and swim, or else the timer ticks over to a 3 and you get 3 fireworks to waste a second. Saradoc landed just a tiny bit too far left and it cost him a second. But it still netted him time overall, and when combined with the fire flower skip, he achieved a huge new world record of 2:37. A few days later, Saradoc came back and played the same run, but skipped the fireworks in -1. The final time was 2:35. Then the category settled down for several months, as most players focused on the bigger categories, any percent and more plus. But in 2015, Saradoc came back to -1 ending. He managed to squeeze out one more frame roll in 1-2 and did a flip in -3 to get to the ceiling faster. These tricks saved about 0.7 seconds combined, and his final time was 2:35.27. By the time 2016 came around, Minus World Ending had essentially been the same for years. Saradoc was still the record holder, there was no obvious time save for him. Yet, while that category had been stagnant, the rest of the game had been undergoing a transformation. A player came along and began laying waste to Super Mario Bros. Records, achieving times in all categories that were previously thought impossible. This player's name was Darbian.
We're all just young boys off Twitch.
That April, he set a legendary world record in any percent. A few months later, he got the warpless record too. Yes! Eventually, he set records in the All-Stars version as well.
Done.
In 2016, Darbian was the premier player of Super Mario Bros. By that November, he had 4 out of 5 main category records. The only one he was missing was the Minus World Ending, still held by Saradoc. Darbian didn't particularly care about this record, but he was also so close to a leaderboard sweep. If he could beat the Minus World record, then he would hold all 5 world records.
We have any percent. We did it. Congrats. Warpless. We did it. Congrats. Any percent All-Stars. We did it. Congrats. Warpless All-Stars. We did it. Congrats.
So, Darbian began practicing. Only problem was there wasn't much time to save over Saradoc's record. He hadn't left anything on the table, and there were no obvious mistakes. But Darbian eventually identified one spot where he could save time, on the axe grab at the end of -3. Saradoc grabbed it 1 frame too far forward, meaning timing stopped a frame later than necessary. If Darbian landed on the first frame of the axe, he could beat the world record by 1 frame. It wasn't much, but it would be enough to get the leaderboard sweep. That's all Darbian wanted. On November 30th, he had a run with a fast flip in 1-2. Then in -1, he got the full flagpole glitch.
Got it.
After finishing -2, Darbian was tied with the record. Just 1 more level to go. If he could get the wall clip and then get a better axe grab, he might be able to get the record here.
We tied it. Unless we got a better axe grab.
Darbian went to the frame counter run. He looked at the axe grab, and it turned out he did indeed save that 1 frame. New world record, 235.26. Darbian was the undisputed champ of Super Mario Bros. He officially had the 5 out of 5 leaderboard sweep, and the Minus World Ending record seemed to be approaching the absolute limit. So now, we were at a breaking point. Darbian got all frame rolls that Saradoc got, and saved the frame on the axe. Where do we even go from here? Well, in 2017, that question was answered, because longtime runner Andrew G started looking at Minus World Ending. Andrew G is a Mario legend. He's best known for holding the game's most prestigious record, any percent, for 7 years straight. By 2017, though, he'd been out of it for a while, having passed the torch to Saradoc and Darbian. But but the game still piqued his interest from time to time. And now, Minus World Ending had his attention. As good as Darbian's run was, Andrew wondered if there was more he could get out of it. Perhaps these 5 levels weren't actually perfect. Specifically, level 1-2. Darbian picked up the mushroom in this level, and its only purpose was to make the Minus World flip possible. If only you could go to the Minus World as Small Mario. You could skip the mushroom altogether and save over a second. Well, Andrew G knew there actually was one way to do this. This is the 1-2 pipe flip. This was first used in the 2004 task by Mana. It skips the mushroom and is the fastest way to get to the Minus World. And the problem is it wasn't humanly possible. When you're running at a wall, it's possible to be barely outside it on one frame and barely inside it on the next. The game responds by ejecting you out in the opposite direction that you're moving. But if you switch to left on the D-pad once entering the wall, the game instead tries to eject you out to the right, effectively sucking you further into the wall. That's the basis of how the pipe flip works. You have to slow to walking speed just before the pipe, press jump for just one frame so you don't go too high, then tap left at the correct moment to flip inside, and eventually resume running. It was just too hard to string all that together, so real-time runners barely bothered looking at it. That is, until Happy Lee posted a Human Theory speedrun of 1-2 that involved doing the clip from a save state. He clearly showed what inputs needed to be done, and while it was difficult, it was enough to make Andrew G think that maybe it was possible. And it certainly would be worth trying. The 1-2 pipe flip saves an entire 8 frame rolls, although you give some of that back in -3 by not being able to do the ceiling clip. If Andrew could hit this in a run, he could blow the door off the record, but actually hitting it was much easier said than done. After hundreds of tries, Andrew finally managed to pull it off, entering the pipe to the Minus World. He was now nearly 3 seconds ahead of the record. With a lead this big, Andrew could afford to play the rest of the run super safe. So in -1, he set up the full flagpole glitch very carefully by walking up to the pole. It cost a second, but he was still ahead overall. And in -3, he lost another second by having to navigate the maze normally. That still left him with a small lead.
I don't know. World record?
Yes, Andrew, a world record. 234.80. This is exactly what Andrew was looking for. He built a big lead with the pipe clip, then bled just enough time to still beat Darbian. There was a decent amount of time save possible in -1 and -3, but just getting the 1-2 pipe flip in a run was hard enough, and Andrew decided he was done for now. He moved on, and the Minus World record stayed put at 234. A few months passed, with nobody trying to challenge Andrew's record. The main reason was the pipe flip. Even though it was only a minute into the run, it was still out of reach for most players. Few could do what Andrew G could do. But if someone else could pull it off, then improving the rest of the run wouldn't be too hard. It all came down to one question. Who else could get the pipe flip? Well, in August 2017, 4 months after Andrew G's 234, a couple new contenders emerged. They weren't record holders like Andrew, but they were very good players in their own right. And most importantly, after much practice, they were able to build a little bit of consistency with the pipe flip. Their names were Merrick and Solo Q. Merrick was a runner who specialized in side categories, like Beat Stage 5-4 and All Point Heavens. Solo Q was a top 10 any percent runner, with a respectable personal best of 457. Neither one had Andrew's speedrunning resume, yet they both felt like they could take his Minus World ending record. Their plan was to match Andrew's run, but with the faster full flagpole glitch. If either of them could pull this off, they would get the first ever
Programmable
230
splitter unlocked. This upgrade to the Smart Splitter provides additional options to improve conveyor belt logistics.
Merrick was in third. Both were making progress. The world record was within reach. On August 20th, Merrick had a run that lost a frame rule in 1-1, then had a slow 1-2 clip to lose another frame rule. Still, when he got the fast full flagpole glitch, he gained 3 frame rules. He was now ahead of Andrew. This was a guaranteed world record as long as he didn't do anything dumb in -3. New world record. Andrew G had been dethroned. The final 3 levels of the run were amazing. The only time save potential was in World 1. Weeks later, Solo Q aimed to pick up that time. He got the 1-1 frame rule, then a fast flip in 1-2. Now, if he could hit the full flagpole glitch, he'd be on 233 pace.
Dude, is this actually it? Oh my god.
-2 went well, and although he lost a few frames in -3, Solo Q still closed out the run strongly. This run combined the World 1 from Andrew's run with every frame rule in the minus world. It was, from Solo Q's perspective, essentially perfect. The only mistake he made was a few frames lost in the turnaround to -3. A while later, Merrick tried to save that time. He managed to match Solo Q's pace, but then lost the exact same amount of time in -3. He tied him. The world record was now 233.73, held by both Merrick and Solo Q. Mission accomplished for both players. As so often occurs in speedrunning, this peak of minus world ending competition was followed by a valley of inactivity. Over on the other categories, the any percent world record had just changed hands again, going from Darbian to longtime record contender Cosmic.
Yeah.
This wasn't Cosmic's first record. He'd held both the any percent and warpless records on multiple occasions. And now, after getting yet another world record, a third category started to pique his interest.
This is perfect timing, by the way, because today in the mail I got my Famicom disc version of this game. It has the different minus world, so I'll be doing minus world ending world record attempts.
This was gonna be good. No disrespect to Merrick or Solo Q, both great speedrunners, but Cosmic was a different beast. Time and time again, he'd beaten everyone else and risen to the very top of some quite competitive leaderboards. He was probably the absolute best Super Mario Bros. Player on the planet. Now, he was about to see what he could do to minus world ending. And even though there's only 5 levels, Cosmic had a few tricks. The first trick was in 1-2. To get to the minus world, instead of using the pipe flip, Cosmic planned to do a wall flip. This looks like it shouldn't be possible. It all has to do with Mario's subpixel value. Mario visually moves in pixels, but his positioning updates quite often than that. Depending on Mario's subpixel value, his exact position slightly changes, and it alters how much he can clip in the Tiny things change his subpixels. When you press B, when you press left and right, and how long, practically anything when you're not at full speed. So, runners need to find subpixel setups to make wall clips possible. And the setup for the 1-2 wall clip was found by someone named John Smith. Just kidding. It was found by XX420 Blazeit XX. Blazeit's setup was simple. You push B on the correct frame when starting the run. This always sets up your subpixels to make the wall clip possible. The wall clip was easier overall than the pipe flip, so Cosmic could get more runs to the minus world. Another trick he planned to go for? The flagpole glitch. This is a trick commonly used in top any percent runs, but hadn't yet been brought to minus world ending. By doing a precise setup discovered by Sockfolder, you can clip into the base of the flagpole and grab the pole lower than normal. This triggers a condition in the game where the flag doesn't come down. You save 1 frame rule by skipping that animation. The flagpole glitch can be used in 1-1 and -2. It's similar to -1's full flagpole glitch, but is harder and doesn't save as much time. Speaking of the full flagpole glitch, Cosmic had a small improvement there too. He switched to holding down and right while approaching the flagpole. This made him slow down less when touching the ground, giving him a bigger window to land and still avoid fireworks. That's 3 new tricks Cosmic could use. Down plus right on the -1 flagpole, the 1-2 wall clip, and the flagpole glitch in 1-1 and -2. This all had major implications on the run. Here's the visual history of the minus world-ending record up to now. You can see how runners chipped away over time until plateauing in the 233 range. But now, these new strats kinda changed everything. Thanks to flagpole glitch and a potential 1-2 time save, the human limit was a mid-232. There was a long road ahead to actually get there, but Cosmic could get it started right now. He got to work trying to implement as much as he could.
No way that just happened. I jumped. Holy cow. Good enough. Good enough. Good enough.
It took him just 3 days. The record was now a half-second lower. The game didn't even know what to do. Cosmic was way ahead on the leaderboards. Merrick saw what Cosmic had done. He was still interested in competing for the record. The problem was the flagpole glitch. It's an extremely hard trick, with multiple frame-perfect inputs and more. Cosmic had years of experience going for it in any percent runs, so it wasn't too hard for him to implement in minus world ending. But Merrick struggled with it. Although he could match Cosmic everywhere else, the flagpole glitch was different. He practiced the trick, yet couldn't build consistency with it. But there was another way Merrick could save time. If he went for the pipe clip and did it really fast, it could save a frame roll over the wall clip. That eliminated the need for the flagpole glitch. This was Merrick's path to beating Cosmic, despite playing from behind and not being a record holder. He'd need all of his capable frame rolls and a grade -3. In March, Merrick started whittling down his first success, slowly closing in on the record. And on the 28th, he found himself in -3, tied with the record. It would all come down to the turnaround. That was just about perfect. It saved 4 frames and was a new world record. Cosmic himself was quite impressed. He'd flat out been beaten, but Cosmic knew he could still improve it with flagpole glitch. If he went for it in 1-1 and -2, he could even afford to lose the 1-2 frame roll. That August, that's the type of run Cosmic went for. First, he tied Merrick to the frame, then he got a very low 233 before finally getting the world's first 232.
Perfect. Perfect speedrun.
Cosmic now had both flagpole glitches, the pipe clip, the full flagpole glitch, and a fast -3. It was now really hard for anyone else to compete with this. Only someone with a main category world record could pull off 232 in minus world ending. Cosmic was just flat out the best Super Mario Bros. Player, and as long as that stayed true, the minus world ending record was all his.
455. Oh my gosh, is it record? That might be record, G.
This is Someone's, and on October 22nd, 2018, he took Cosmic's any percent record. Somewes was a gamer. He'd been battling for this record for months now, finally pulling ahead and cementing the top spot on the leaderboard. He had all the skills Cosmic had, and now, after taking his any percent record, he was ready to go after Cosmic's minus world ending record too. Now, here's the thing. The only difference between the record and the human limit was one more frame rule in 1-2. Cosmic played the pipe clip safe by slowing to walking speed early. If Sumwest went faster, he'd save 0.35 seconds. And that was it. The record got all other frame rules and a perfect turnaround in -3. It was really quite simple for Sumwest. There was only one improvement to make. His perfect run would be a 232.48. West started playing for the record, and quickly he got himself a 233.5 with time losses in 1-1, 1-2, and -3. Still, not a bad result for one day of work. He kept going, and minutes later, he got on another run.
And I get it. I don't know how.
Here we are, -3 on perfect pace. If West could play a good -3, then this was going to be it.
Is this it? It's gonna be it? With the cat draw?
It was over. Sumwest had just gotten a 232.48. All frame rules were matched, and -3 was perfect. The congratulations poured in as Sumwest celebrated with his cap. The human limit was officially reached, and this was the end of the world-ending world record. At least, as it was currently understood. While the boundaries of the human limit seemed to be set in stone, maybe they could be adjusted. If a human viable time save was found, then the human limit would be lowered. We just have to find a new way to save time. But as we know, there's only 5 levels to search through. Is it actually possible to go faster in any of them? Well, let's see what players currently did. In 1-1, players ran through without stopping, then did a flagpole glitch. No possible time save there. In 1-2, players mostly ran through without stopping. They technically slowed down a tiny bit for the pipe clip, but not much. There's no quicker way to get through the wall to the minus wall. In -1, players swam through without stopping, then did a full flagpole glitch. No way to improve over that. In -2, players ran through without stopping, then did a flagpole glitch. Obviously, no improvements possible. That left just one level, -3. This level does have the turnaround. You have to backtrack, so skipping that would save time. The problem, of course, is taking the other paths leads you to a wall. If only you could just go through the wall. You know, something like this. Well, hey, there's an idea. This is similar to the wall clip method in 1-2. You can partially land just inside the wall, then repeatedly jump to fully enter it. Now, for years, this trick was known, but seemed out of the question. Players jumped at the wall, but never made it inside. But in 2018, it was 420 Blaze It to the rescue. He found a subpixel setup. By buffering jump to start the level, then pressing B while Mario falls off the last step, you'll be able to clip inside the wall. It wasn't easy, but this setup made it a viable trick. It saved about half a second. The human limit had just been lowered again. If a player could get all the flagpole glitches, the pipe clip, all the frame rules possible, and then hit the -3 wall clip, they could just barely get a 231. That's what Sumwest decided to go for. The first step was making it back to -3 tied with the record, which wasn't easy. He poured hundreds of attempts in, trying to make every trick line up. Finally, a few weeks later, he had another chance. As he entered -3, if he could now hit the wall clip, the 231 would be his. His game crashed. -3 is pure evil. But he couldn't stop now. He'd come so close. Sumwest kept trying, and his attempt counter really started to pile up. A couple weeks later, he did finally get the wall clip on a run that lost the frame rule in 1-1 for a small record. But a few hundred attempts later, Sumwest had another golden chance. picked up the 1-1 frame rule, then maintained his pace over the next 3 levels. Another chance at the 231, if he could hit the wall flip.
Yes, dude! 231!
That was it. Sunwest had done it again. As soon as there was a chance to match the human limit, he was all over it. A run with all frame rules and the wall clip. Now, there is a tiny gap between this run and the human limit, and that's because -3 doesn't operate on the frame rule system. Every frame counts in this level, and while Sunwest got a fast wall clip, it was technically possible to save a few more frames here. Depending on how you jump and the way you mash, it's possible for the wall to suck you in a bit smoother. So technically Wes's run was marginally improvable. The run was roughly perfect, not literally perfect. Over the next several months, while there was a lot of minus world ending activity, nobody could compete with Sunwest. By early 2019, 3 runners had tied Cosmic's second place run: GT Ace, Royalty, and the former record holder Merit. The main difference with these 4 runs is that they didn't go for the -3 wall clip, except for Merit, who, as we know, didn't do flagpole glitches. Unless these guys were willing to implement a hard trick at the very end of the run, they wouldn't be able to catch Sunwest. Who would have the guts to go for it? Then all of a sudden in January, the competition picked up again. Someone decided they wanted to shave off those last few frames.
Here we go.
This made sense. Cosmic had competed with West before, maybe he could do it again. And over the past couple years, he'd gotten even better at flagpole glitches. This time, he'd have to go for the perfect pipe clip and then an even faster wall clip with -3. It was tough, but doable for a player of his caliber. Alright, Cosmic, let's see what you can do.
Why? I don't know the problem. Okay. It's nice when you get a second shot at life. No. It's so close. We're so close. He just didn't get running speed.
This would have been it, but he couldn't build running speed before jumping out of the wall. It ended up costing him the record. Shortly after this, 420 Blaze It came back and made yet another huge discovery. It was a faster subpixel setup for the wall clip. You do a full jump off the last 2 frames of the block, then let go of B in the air and repress it the frame after landing. It was harder than the old setup, but saved an entire 8 frames. This pushed the human limit to the 231.8 range, and raised the stakes for competition. Then, another of the tied runners decided to try making a move: GT Ace. GT Ace had never held the any percent record, but he still had a pretty incredible track record, being the former Warpless world record holder. After setting a personal best only 3 frames off Sunwest's record, he managed to hit the faster subpixel setup in a run. Now, if he could get a good clip, this would be a new record. It wasn't a great clip, but thanks to the 8 frames saved on the setup, he wound up beating Sunwest by 1 frame, just a tiny bit closer to the human limit. It was around this time that yet another runner started going for the -1 ending record. He was an up-and-comer with a lot of talent. If he could get this, it would be his first ever Super Mario Bros. World record. This runner's name was Niftsky.
Like the normal minus world, it's an infinite looping water section.
Niftsky felt that with Blazit's faster setup and a good clip, a time around 231.8 was realistic. But he'd have to beat out players like Cosmic and GT Ace to do it, both tried and true record holders. Still, Niftsky's flagpole glitch and pipe clip consistency was pretty good. He just had to make it to -3 with a chance, and February 11th, he'd get his shot.
Yes! Please, dude. Please. Wait. Dude, that was it. But I hit the timer. That was it. That had to be it. That had to be it. Oh my god.
This was an amazing wall flip. When combined with the faster setup, it was a big cut off the record. Although he stopped his timer early, the run was quickly retimed as a 231.80, once again roughly matching the human limit. And Nifsky didn't stop there. Later, Blazit found yet another faster subpixel setup that shaved 4 frames off the human limit. Guess what Nifsky did next?
Oh my god, was that it? There's no way.
Other runners tried to compete with Nifsky. Cosmic, GT Ace, and Scrimzian all had runs that got the wall flip on pace. But time and time again, they were just a bit too slow. And instead, it was Nifsky finding faster setups and getting the wall flips.
Oh my god! Yes! Yes! Oh my god!
By late 2020, Nifsky had taken the time down to 231.65. And this time, the human limit was actually solidified. It had been slightly lowered recently because of faster setups, but now Nifsky was doing a fast acceleration to start the level and a fast wall clip. You couldn't go any quicker. Combine that with all frame rules being matched up to -3, and Nifsky had taken the run to its actual human limit, 231.65. So, maybe we have to go past the human limit. This is the task of minus world ending, 230.10. It represents a theoretical perfect speed. A task is created by using save states, slowdown, even frame by frame, letting you do the exact moves you want through the whole game. A task lets you do tricks that are too hard for humans to perform in real time. The difference between Nifsky's record and the task is just over a second and a half. Where on earth can you save that much time? Well, it's all from 2 levels, -2 and -3. The task saves a few frames in -3 from a perfect flip and fast accelerations. And in -2, it saves an entire 4 frame rules. How? Well, by doing this. This is the -2 full flagpole glitch. It is the hardest trick in the task by an enormous margin, discovered by Master Happy Lee in 2009. The end result is similar to the -1 full flagpole glitch, but setting it up is a different story. It was hard enough that real-time runners didn't even bother looking at it for years, but the 4 frame rules of time save eventually became too tantalizing. In 2019, former record holder Merritt did some research to find the setup, and this nightmare chain of events is what he found. You have to jump on this specific frame for exactly 6 frames, let go of B in the air, and then repress it on this exact frame after landing. Then, after holding right, you must switch to holding left on the very next frame, a nearly impossible task on an original D-pad. Then you let go of left and switch back to right 2 frames later, and finally switch back to left once more to enter the wall. You run to the flagpole, and on the correct frame, you press jump for exactly 1 frame. If all this is done correctly, you'll clip into the base of the flagpole and complete the full flagpole glitch. Merrick practiced all this for months. Eventually, he was able to get the flip in real time from the save state, but it was way too inconsistent to be considered for runs. Besides, at that point in 2019, the world record wasn't as optimized. So, runners shelved the trick until they really needed it. Well, a couple years later, that time had come. Nifsky had run out of time saves, and had to start looking at the -2 flip. Luckily, in the past year, there had been some developments. Kriller37 found a slightly better setup. It avoided the awkward 6-frame jump and made the clip a little easier, but added in a frame per that was right the visual cue to help with the setup. It was still an insanely hard trick, but not quite as insane as it was a year ago. Just enough to give him hope that maybe he could hit it in a run eventually to get a shot at -3. After extensive practice, Nifsky decided that it was time. He was going to go for -2 FFPG in attempts, and he had a game plan for how to do so. Since the trick was so hard but saved so much time, he was going to take other tricks out of it, at least for now. Later, once he got a world record with -2 FFPG, he'd slowly add the other tricks back into the run. So, for now, he decided to skip both the 1-1 flagpole glitch and the -3 clip. That let him maximize his tries at the -2 FFPG. Over the following weeks, Nifsky did hundreds of attempts. Many made it to -2, but none got the FFPG. If he could land it once, he'd be home free at -3. Even that was too much to ask. The trick was just too hard. Until one day, in January 2021.
Finally! Holy cow! Come on, finish it! Don't choke. This is the only part we don't have to choke, and this is record. Yes! Grab the axe. Let's go! 231 F4! Yes!
At long last, Nifsky had hit the -2 FFPG. The record was taken to a place once considered completely out of the question. This is what speedrunners do. They make the impossible possible, and the term human limit becomes ridiculous. Now, Nifsky had a new task in front of him. Add back in the other tricks, make the world record literally perfect. And with artificial limitations out of the way, there was nothing stopping him.
Yes! Yes! Is that it?
Years of playing, thousands of attempts building his skills, and Nifsky has brought the record to 7 frames from perfection. Over that time, Nifsky became by far the best Super Mario Bros. Player in the world. He now holds all main category records, some of them by relatively huge margins. But even he's not sure if the final 7 frames in World Ending will ever be saved. 2 of those frames come from faster methods of acceleration. The other 5 come from the clip itself. You need a precise angle to save a jump in the wall, frame perfect mashing, and a perfect right repress out of the clip. A perfect stage -3 had never been done before, let alone at the end of a perfect paced run. But who knows? Maybe one day the limits will change again. All these runners, all their efforts, have all built up to this. The story of how speedrunners completely mastered the category, and their chase for a never-ending human limit. Thanks for watching. For a behind-the-scenes look at how I made this video and storylines that I couldn't include, join my Patreon.
Hey, welcome to Vice Grip Garage. I'm Derek Geary. Since it's the holidays, I'm bringing you a bonus extra episode, and don't worry, I'm still giving you regularly scheduled on Friday. This is the Duramax. It's my old Duramax Allison truck. This is my tow pig. It has 11.9 or 4 gajillion moon miles on it. It's all original under the hood, and I need to do some much needed transmission maintenance. And I'm going to be putting on an Edge CTS 3000. I think it's just a 3, but 3000 sounds way cool. cooler. We're going to get all the horse torques out of this and hopefully better fuel mileage towing. And if we have time and the parts show up, we're going to be throwing some Bayer brakes on this as well. I've always got a trailer on this, and we need to whoa it up. All right, let's dig in.
This holiday, Verizon will turn your old or broken phone into a gift. Trade in any phone in any condition and get Google Pixel 9 Pro with Gemini, an AI assistant from Google. Plus watch and tap. All three.
Is this old rig? This is the truck I purchased to get my Pantera back home from Canada. And it's been a great truck. Been using it a lot since then. Put some tires on it, and it's just been pulling trailers pretty much every single week. Getting a little nervous on the transmission. It's doing some funny stuff between third to second, second to third, and getting a little lazy. The engine, not so worried about it, but it's all original all the way to the injectors. I want to maintenance this thing and try to limp it along as far as I can, so we'll be doing a full transmission service. I do have a tuner on this, but I don't know what it's doing. There's no monitor whatsoever. We're going to delete that tune. We're going to be putting in this Edge CTS3 that has a handy screen. We got a mount to put it up on the pillar so a guy can see what in the world is going on. The temperatures and cycles and this and that, and ejector-roonies and turbski pressures. Whatever other science these have that you want to look at. Plus, this actually has a towing mode or performance mode, etc. We'll probably try the performance out, you know, accidentally. But we're going to leave it on towing because that's what it does. I saved a bucket load on this stuff. Right now through the 29th, it's holidays. You can save up to 20% on 6,274 SKUs over at Holley.com across all of the Holley Performance brands. Now is the time to save if you're looking for like a Sniper, an EFI intake, Flowmaster stuff, Simpson stuff, Bayer stuff. The list goes on and on and on, so be sure to check that out. And again, that's through the 29th. I think I'm going to start with the transmission because we want oil just everywhere. And then we'll move on to the tuner, see what we got going there. And then if those brakes show up, we're going to pop them on as well. These are warped beyond belief. You tap that pedal and you get the old Dodge death wobble. We should probably fix that. Before I lift the rig up, just making sure I got all the goodies we need here. This actually worked out really well. Reached out to Randy's Transmissions, and they have an Ellison service kit. Get that, and it has everything you need. So I got a new gasket, got the filters here, and then this is all the juice that you need for it. So that's convenient, takes the guesswork out of it. So I'll get this down, set it aside. Might have to empty my drain pan. It's pretty high. And we'll see what this fluid looks like. Let's be honest, now it's blacker than my liver. Great. You know, guy was just sitting here thinking, we haven't done a lot of diesel stuff. A few here and there, maybe. But if you want to see some more, let me know. I ain't opposed to it. They're just hard to find cheap, you know, where a guy can get into them at a good price, but maybe we can get lucky and find something. Okay, let's drain this Ellison. No idea when this was serviced last. I think it's hung up right now, downshifting. And then it wants to hunt a little bit. And makes me nervous when I got a trailer on. That she's gonna go right then and there and leave us stranded. Wow, that doesn't look that bad. A little burnt-ish. Ish. Okay. Should have put down 100 pounds of cat litter before I even started, because I know that's where we're headed. drained, kind of cleaned up a little bit. I'm gonna go ahead and zip out the pan bowls. Try to tilt the pan and get it as empty as I can before dropping it. It's going to make a mess. There we go. Ah! Anxious to see what it's like up in here. I'm sure it's had a hard life. Hoping to get some more miles out of this thing before I commit to another unit. 2 chunks there. Ah! Oh, in my front pocket. I'll be there. Let's see what we got. Nervous at throwing more power at this, you know, but if it does something like change the line pressure or it's safer or firmer shifts, then I think we'll be just fine. Hello. Hello. In my mouth. That's out, I guess. That's good. Wow, it's got a lot of beep boops up in there. Beavers and whatnots and doodads. It looks pretty clean. I'm going to drop this other filter and then we'll start the reassembly. That was easy. Wow, how long are these threads now? For Pete's sake. Filter going back on. Reminder to put the date or the miles on there, fellers, so a guy can know what in the world is actually going on.
Journey of Monarch is now available on both PC and mobile with Google Play Games.
Throw this other filter in. The other O-ring stuff in there. Where's my picker scraper? must have just serviced this. Because that doesn't make any sense whatsoever. But I didn't know. No dates or anything. I'd rather play on the side of caution. Anywho's. Right? So here's the pan after cleaning it. And there wasn't really much in here. A little bit on that Megamint over there, but that was it. So we'll throw a new gasket on this and toss it up. Guys always running and gunning. I don't really get to do maintenance that much. I gotta be honest. It feels pretty good to know your rig is ready. Gasket in there. Okay. Got a bloodbath under here. Got a lot of respect for the guys and gals that stand in their cars and do this all day. Especially in the wintertime. You got snow and ice dripping on your face, ATF in your earlobe, all sorts of stuff. What's the torques on these? All of them? Whatever that is. I should probably look it up. Yep. Well, go ahead and believe it and or don't. But I found one of these cookie things. I got her adjusted. That seems like a lot. Maybe not. Anywhere between 10 and 15 foot-pounds. What the Manuel is saying. Which means the drain plug's probably 20. Feeling like Danny DeVito had to go get a step stool. Used to that. Okay, self-tappers, clogged filter, that's falling off, that's loose. Alright, sure. Look familiar. Let me get a fun eel, throw some more dirt inside of it, jam that in, get my juice. I think we'll start with 10, and then we'll fire it, roll the gears, check it out. Yep. Okay. Flavor we get. We got mobile syntheticals. One. Know the drill. Be here for a minute. While I'm waiting for the funnel to drain off, I'm gonna go ahead and clean this. Goodness gracious. Just completely packed full. Right? doubt this is a K&N. Doesn't look like it. Some off-brand. Oh, it is a K&N. I don't have any filter oil, but we can at least get all of this gunk out. Maybe I should run to town. I'm not used to having fancy filtres. I ain't got the stuff for this. But a little more under the hood. That's what a bajillion miles looks like. You know, everything's loosey-goosey, scratched, capped off with bolts. Looking questionable, bare wired, been there, oil leaked. But it runs. And it runs pretty good. I don't know how that truck was breathing. This is just a portion of it. It's everywhere. Blued this thing out. It's better, it's not perfect. Always blow your filters from the inside out. Don't just jam air straight in this way. You're just getting it in the cleats even more. Blow this side out. That'll help you get it actually clean. Well, the guy is back now. Got to the hardware store. Had a little bit of pep in my step. 3 cups of coffee. I thought, why don't we just put a new filter on here? Truck's been good, hasn't given me any issues. It's the least I could do. Searched them up, $75. Nope. So I did get this, never used it before. Apparently you gotta apply a cleaner, rinse it, dry it, oil it, install it. Well, the guy's got the filter soaking here with the cleaner stuff. More importantly, got the saw dug out, you know, out of the back of the truck here. A good maintenance program on your saw rigs. Really important. I got some trees that are down I need to take care of soon. Yeah. Hard to stay ahead with the oaks. You know what I mean? Look at all my screwdrivers though. Just filed this bad boy. And I hit a knot and chucked it a while back. What kind of brand saw you guys run? This is a cheap little Echo, but it's done me good. I guess I can't complain. There are some better saws out there, I'm sure, but they also come with a price tag. So, you know, the old saying, you get what you pay for and whatnot. Boy, we're getting everything done today. Maybe I should get this generator running again. The old ethanol got it. You know. Actually, my son Bentley is the small engine guy. I should send that down to his shack. It's got bad gas in it. No. Okay, well anyway, saw's good to go. Gotta cut some stuff up later. Let's go wash this filter and get that drying. So anywho's, that's outside, freezing in the... We'll fire this up anyway without a filtre. Check the blood stick on the go forward, go backward machine. shift some gears first. Low coolant level. We should take care of that as well. Okay. Woo! Good running old truck. Yeah, she needs at least another quart and a half. It's got you covered. I thought, well, that's 12's a little extreme, but well, I know the deal. Grab some coolant. So many flavors anymore. Just throwing this one in. It says North American. I can't see nothing. Surely that's got to be good.
When migraine strikes, do you question the trade-offs of treating? Ubrelvy is another option.
Try her now. Haven't thrown a middleman. Yep. I think this is a older Garrett intake. Yeah, Garrett. Huh. Okay, well, the filter's still drying, so let's figure out this beep booping computer tune stuff. So right now the rig's got this PPE tuner thing. Specific something performance. I don't know. I've used one of these before on my old LVC and it worked great. But you don't get any sort of data or diagnosticals or what's happening or anything like that. So we're gonna back this out of the computer, load the stock file, and then we're going to install our new one, which will flash the computer again. And I got a mountain thing that's supposed to go right up here so you don't have it like awkwardly stuck on the windshield. I'm not a huge fan of like gauge pods and screens and all of this stuff. I don't need this to look like a New York taxi, but when it's telling you important things that you want to know, your exhaust gas temperature and your turbo pressure and your manifold pressure and your injector duty cycle It's kind of nice to have here if you've got, you know, a 40-foot car trailer on and 2 heavy trucks and you're going up a hill. You want to keep an eye on all that stuff. So that's kind of the goal. Plus, if we can get any more MPGs out of this, that would be great. Diesel isn't getting any cheaper. Kind of fumbling through this, remembering how this works. It just flashed through the screen. This is on Tune 1 with 373 rear gears, and I think the PPE actually gives you the data on that. So here we can see on power level 1, it's 40 horsepower and 97 torque. But if you feed her the coal and give her a couple onions, you can get another 225 horse and 335 torque out of it. But speaking from experience, it's pretty rough on the truck. So we're going to go through this and we're going to try to get this back to stock. Do I gotta read the construction? Safe. Found it. Stock engine tune, yes. Do it. Install tune. Stock engine tune. There we go. Speed limited to 130. 32.5 tire, 373. Okay, I think that is it. I'm just going to cycle the ignition, double check that. And the reason I'm doing this is we don't want to, I'm pretty sure the tunes would get in a fist fight in the backyard next to the swing set if this one was in there and we plug in the other one. And then we brick the beep boop thing with the cords hanging out of it, and then that's a whole thing. And then we try to put a carburetor on a diesel. Well, this was slick. I don't know if I got it on side down or upside left or what, but it's got like paws that grab on both sides. I broke my clip up here, had to fix that. Hold this down to slide it over, and now I just got to run that down, but I think I got to clip that screen on first and get it adjustalized before I pinch this up. But then we don't have stuff stuck in the windshield and whatnot. It's right on the hood. So now we got this mounted. We got to run the cable down to here and beep boop that in. Excuse me, buddy. I was looking at this. This is pretty cool. You can plug in a backup camera to this. Turbo timer, EGT probe of course, universal input, power switch, all sorts of stuff. I'm gonna put that backup camera on my Christmas list, I think. That would be handy with how many times we're backing up to different trailers. So I'm gonna pull this off, obviously, and we're gonna try to work that through here and up through here so it's, you know, not an eyesore, and then boop, plugs in right there. What do you think? Good so far? Well, we got that plugged in. It hid well, and we got the high definition multimedia interface plugged in and already fired up. Bunch of legal jargon. I'm going to read through the book super quick, and we'll jump in and see if we can throw a tune on this. Well, we're having to do some downloading here. This one has Wi-Fi, but it wasn't working. So I called tech support. We got this cable plugged in, had to go to the site. Downloading some stuff now. And I think we're going to be ready to go, hopefully. Well, tech support was super helpful. We had a fatal error, but it turns out it wasn't that big of a deal. We just had to connect it to the computer and reflash it essentially, update it, and we're good to go. So we've downloaded the original tune, and now I've got towing tune, and it's asking me if I want to download it as is or if I want to make any adjustments, which is pretty cool, but I think we're just going to leave it as is. Hit install, accept and install. She's loading her in right now. We can fire this thing up. And again, the great thing about this is not only are we getting a tune, but I can actually see there's a economy mode on this, which is pretty cool. So if you're empty trailer and you're just commuting, you throw this thing on economy and okay, we're all loaded up. Huh. That's pretty cool. I think you can just swipe. Yep. So I can come through here if I double tap on this. You can customize all these gauges and stuff, I think. Let's put that on boost. I don't need to know what my battery's doing. You'll know if your battery's doing. But show me the boost assist. That's what we need to see. There we go. I like it. I think you can do all sorts of layouts in here. Wow. Okay, disable the tutorial. Let me struggle. Just let me struggle here. Screen to select. There's 23 different screens. Modern layout. Sure. I don't know. Just throw something on there. Well, that was really simple. Really, really simple. I took a screenshot and set the backup camera to Jessica for Christmas. I don't know if we'll get her in time, but boy, would that be handy. I was reading on it. Apparently, you throw it in reverse, it automatically switches to the backup camera, just like in newer trucks, they got the big eye plate or whatever it is in the middle. Same thing. This also has performance test. What is this? Nah, we ain't gonna do no hot rodding. 0 to 60. Well, we better try that. From stop. I guess it just knows when you take off. That's pretty sweet. Nice. All right. So we just gotta let. Been nursing a bad battery for years. We're gonna let that air filtre finish drying. We'll clamp that back on. Let me check to see if the brakes showed up. I don't think they did today. And that'll get them on another day. It's just rotors and pads, so it's a super fast swap. These rotors are shot, like I said, but we should probably go drive this thing. Maybe just push the performance button just for scientific reasons and see what happens. I don't know.
This holiday, Verizon will turn your old or broken phone into a gift. Anyone can trade in any phone.
I don't know. I ran her through the water and then swanged her in circles, tried to dry it off. Did it with that weird oily red paint stuff. Sure. Every good project starts with the battery on boil. I had to boil this one. For some reason this has got light emitting diodes on every door and overhead. And the door open tuning this thing drained on these whatever landing cubes those are. So charge them up a little bit. But anyway, I think we are good and ready to go for a cruise. Also, I don't know if you noticed this, but I had to delete the white GMC spray painted. So I did that by just spray painting it with black. Well, the guy was just getting ready to pull out the driveway and look what showed up. Beefy motors from Bayer. Got these on the holidays sale. And I got some brake pads, so let's knock some tires off, get these thrown on, get some brake pads on. I'm sure we're going to find damage because, like I say, you hit the brakes in this and the tires just... Yeah. Need to put an air compressor on my Christmas list. That thing's knocking. sort of massacred, drilled, and slotted things up. Well, here's what we got. And like I thought, these are in tough shape and basically coming apart. So we'll be throwing these guys on. This is the matching brake pads for them. Just got to knock this bolt out here, this bolt out here, pry this out essentially, and this should fall right off, and then reassemble. This was so warped and bent, I had to actually beat it off with hammers. The first one I broke clean off. Finally got it off, and then I noticed I thought a ball joint was bad. Which, yes. Oh, look at this. I think a guy can fix that. Okay. Then I already test fit this one, slides right on. I get some grease and lube. Look at all this rust and chunks. These are heat cracked, stressed, smoke. Back in place, rotted out of them. It was time. Well, the guys got the Bayer discs and pads in up front. Basically the same exact process for the rear. Virtually the same setup, just a little bit smaller pads. I'm going to knock those out, then call it a night. Then tomorrow, we're going to go test out this thing. Well, good morning. Bright and early. Gonna go do some testing on the Deer Max. Look at some cattle. Actually, we got a test on the way to the airport. I am leaving again another week doing a revival. Brakes are fantastic. Much, much better. That's gonna help towing big time. Got the old tuner up on the extreme mode accidentally, and I don't know how to change it unless we, speeder the onions really quick. Hopefully I don't throw a generator and T-posts all over the road. Whoops! Okay. Oh, it's just spinning on me. Oh, it's still spinning. Okay, yep, that seems plenty fine for a 20-year-old work truck. Moses, sandals, I think I just saw 28 pounds of boost on the screen. Spins in first, spins in second, spins in third. Yeah, okay, let's go ahead and turn that off. I don't think the guy needs that for Pete's sake. What are we, tractor pulling? Okay. Actually, this will be interesting. I'm gonna put it on economy mode because I'm gonna be on the interstate headed to the airport, and let's just see. I think I've gotten 22 miles to the gallon in this big old truck. With the previous one. Whoa. It was a truck runner. Dummy. And we'll load up this economy tune. I don't mind saving some dollars. And we'll run up to the airport. Also keep in mind, allegedly, I have the wrong fuel in here. So I don't know if that hurts or helps the MPGs or the powers. I guess we'll find out. It's loading right now. We'll jump on the interstate. I got like a 2-hour drive, 2.5-hour drive to the airport. We'll see what it says for MPGs. Well, a guy is finally pulling into the Nashville airport. Got balled up in some really bad traffic there twice. Stop and go stuff. But even with that, we managed 20.6 miles to the gallon. And I am very happy with that. Even though the juice looked good and the shift machine, it is acting better with the new filters and juice. It's definitely stopping better with the Bayer upgrade. And now we can actually monitor this thing and tune it on the fly, which has been really nice. Sometimes a guy's just got a Bantam Ants is going to town rigs. You know what I mean? Speaking of going to town, I need to get on this flight, and I will see you guys Friday in Oklahoma. Thanks for watching. Appreciate you all very much. Happy holidays.
Hi, I'm Sunny Anderson. I have a TV show, I have a cookbook, and I also have ulcerative colitis. And I'll tell you,
Six, 5, 4, 4, 4, 4, 3, 2, 1. Daryl and Jesse are onto their third project for the year, and it's a beauty. A Panzer 1B, and it's going to be a run. The boys made a start on this vehicle in 2019, but the project was put on hold until we could obtain some more parts. Unfortunately, the pandemic and the recent conflict in Ukraine have meant that we're going to have to proceed with what we have. Luckily, we have quite a bit.
The lower hull is made up of new steel and a mixture of old parts that we managed to source. The same with the fighting department. But our whole engine deck is entirely original. The turret's original too. We're going to try and model the suspension off original. We've got some leaf springs and that we can copy. The engine and the drive line will be whatever we can make work in the limited area we've got. But it'll probably just be a little car engine. And we are toying with the idea of having the final drives run on hydraulics.
It's going to be a little bit of a challenge because, like I said, we don't really have plans or schematics or anything like that. We've got one original swing arm that we can copy, so that's going to be really handy. We've also got one final drive sprocket, and I think we've got one rear idler. I think. We've actually forgotten, like me and Darryl were saying before, we've forgotten all about this because we did this all 3 years ago. Have to do some more study on the Panzer ones for sure.
So sit back, relax, and enjoy the entire process of the Australian Armour and Artillery Museum's restoration of this Panzer 1B. To kick off the build, Jesse starts by disassembling the road wheels.
These are original Panzer 1 road wheels. They're a lot smaller and a lot lighter than what we're used to working on, which is good. These are actually cast aluminium.
Wait, really?
Yeah, these are cast aluminium.
Like with all our builds, Jesse has had to fabricate a wacky looking tool to help undo the caps on these wheels. But things don't always go according to plan.
You know what the painful thing is?
What?
That first one just spun straight
off.
Like straight off.
You save this one for some good content.
That crack was causing us a lot of trouble, Hopefully the other road wheels aren't as bad.
Waffle stand.
This should be able to loosen up easily.
Just knock around.
Yeah. A spacer? I think this is like a brass or a copper washer. Put this on my first spinner.
How big is this thing? Oh. Out he comes.
Just think, the last time this was opened was nearly 90 years ago when it was first assembled.
And it's just immaculate, like the day that they put it all together in the factory. So knocking the inner bearing out. See the casting line? This has been cast and then top's been machined to make sure it's the right size. I've also machined in here too. We pulled a few Panda 4 wheels apart and we were finding these cast steel ones, and then there was fabricated ones, and then there was also timber ones.
Your father knows about saving money. Everything I'm wearing, I've had since boot camp.
And I just saved on my car insurance for driving safe with USAA.
Auto insurance that flexes with you. Keep the fit. That's what we're made for.
Juggling bills.
Stocking shelves.
No time to delay. At least we have Lenovo Tech to help us through the fray.
We're a little bit worried about the rubber on some of these wheels, but luckily we found a place we could send them to in Toowoomba that could put some new ones on. But first, the old tyres have to be taken off. While Daz and the museum director were doing this, we noticed that we actually had two different types of wheels. One has tyres bonded to a steel band that presses onto the wheel, and the other has bonding grooves machined onto it, removing the need for the rubber tyre to have a separate band.
We should film the easy one, Curtis.
That's good. That's just called rough one go. Glued on or something.
Bonded on. You peel that back again, I'll do the easy. Yeah, I don't share the shop, mate. I don't contract.
That was
I thought they were all one solid one. They're obviously, those spokes come through, there's support to them.
We've placed the order for new wheel bearings, now we just have to wait for the damaged ones to be retired and sent back to us. We only have one front drive sprocket, but Daryl has a plan for a replacement.
We've got a sprocket on a hub here that makes the final drive for the Panzer 1. We're going to get the new hub made and a new sprocket. I'm just going to cut off all these bolts with the oxy, then separate it. Probably the first time it's been apart in 90 odd years. Yeah, we pulled this one apart. This is an original hub that we've got, but we've only got one. and that's our issue. We're going to press one of these using 3 parts. We've got our lower die, the piece that we're going to press and dish, and our top die, which will go down and push through. Bo's done a bit of this stuff before, so I'm relying on Bo. He's going to help me out here.
This is sort of the crucial bit, trying to just line everything up. Get it as good as you can.
Sometimes when pressing steel like this, it wants to grab and can throw the dies out of alignment. A little bit of lubrication can help prevent this.
Ready to start her up?
Back up to about 47 again, Bo, look at it.
They've pressed a little bit too far, but with a gentle press on the other side, they should be able to get it to the height they need.
So 53.
53?
Yep, a bit more. 49. 49, eh? That's what you wanted.
That's exactly what you wanted. What's that in inches?
Just under 2 inches.
Exactly what we wanted.
Exactly what Bo said we'd get. Thank you, Bo. I love it when Bo makes me look good.
The original was pressed out of one piece of metal with a die and then machined. Setting up a press like that would take way too much time, so Jesse is finishing off the hub by welding in an inner and an outer ring. Once the welds are ground back and everything is machined, you would be very hard pressed to see a difference between the two. The distance between the hull and the centre of the track is probably one of the most critical aspects to this build, so the dimensions of the sprocket have to be as precise as possible. To do this, Jesse skims the surface of the hub off with the milling machine to make it level and the correct width. It turns out the original sprocket was not safe to use, so when we sent our CAD drawings to CashCore Engineering, we had 2 cut at the same time in their water cutter.
I've got the drawing of what we're cutting already preloaded, and this gives me an indication where they are on our piece of steel. It looks like sand up the top there. It's garnet coming through with the water pressure, about 5,500 psi.
The main advantage of water jetting over plasma or laser is that there's very little heat involved, so the quality of the steel remains unchanged. And so, with pixel-perfect accuracy, the cutter is away. The main drawback to water jet cutting is that it's quite a bit slower. Speeding things up by 100 times in the editing software will help that out a bit. Rob and the crew were legends for letting us film there. CashCore's machine workers and boilermakers finished these sprockets off beautifully. Their workshop has a lot more heavy-duty equipment. They machined this groove, beveled the teeth, and drilled out the holes in no time at all. Even with a few things outsourced, there's still a heap of stuff to make.
What we're making here is the very front road wheel swing arm. It's locked in with a shock absorber and a shocker dampener. We want to keep the original shaft if we can, so we'll have a shaft that runs through in here and it'll be welded in position. We'll take this over to Glenn. He'll have a go at turning it down to what we want. How are you, mate? I've got a job for you.
Glenn has to turn this block of metal into a tapering cylinder adhering to really precise measurements that we were able to obtain from overseas off an original. The patience and focus required for a precision job like this is just mind-blowing to me. Two days solid on the lathe, and there you have it. Beautifully turned out, brand new swing arm.
That's it.
That'll get him out of trouble.
You know what you don't see in psoriasis commercials? The
Here we go, Daryl.
Ah, perfect, mate. As always, very, very nice. Yep,
Ready?
Yep. Beautiful.
There's that, right?
Yep, I'll just grind these pieces off that we put there so we can hold in the truck. Thank you very much.
Thanks, Glenn.
It hasn't only been Glenn on the lathe. Daryl has also been hard at work on the one in his shed as well.
This is our front drive sprocket hub, and it's taken a bit to work out, but we're finally there, we think. It's going to work. We want to get these front sprockets on because that'll set the proper width of this actual vehicle. If we're out 2 or 3 mil, we can adjust everything as we go backwards. We're going to use a 3-bearing system because it's got a lot of tension on the side because it's driving a chain. So we've got 2 standard bearings towards the front of the hub, and then in against the wall we've got a roller tapered bearing because that way we can tension it up a bit more. I've got Glenn next door just to cut these threads, and then we had to use an outside company to do these keyways for us. Step 1 is I just want to put a bit of oil on this shaft, right, because we're going to have to drop 2 bearings and a seal through it. This is the space between the 2 bearings, and it runs on the inner race of the bearing. And he'll just go in, oil, position in there. Now I'll put the seal in. Just gently tap the seal in place. So I'm a bit worried whether the heat might do something to this seal, but when we finish with it, we'll pull it apart and have a good look. We just need to put it together to actually weld. We have to have the shaft in it to weld it all together. So that should all turn. It's confirmed. It's probably just got another ½ mil to be tapped in. But when we tighten up the bearing, the final bearing, that should all pull in nice and tight. Give another tap. Got to remember to do everything in sequence because we don't want to pull it apart again. So what I'll do now is I'll put this outer housing on. We've got a spacer between the roller taper bearing and this housing. This is the body of the housing. So it'll go in there. I'm calling this the inner housing, that's the outer housing. So that'll go in on top there. Rightio. So all we've got left now is to put this roller taper bearing on. Right. We'll take this out and grease it up before we actually use it for driving, but that's gone in okay. Everything seems to be turning all right. So the way we lock in this taper roller here is with this flange. We'll put a grease nipple in here so we can keep that greased. That goes on there. And then last of all, we've got a lock ring here. Now, at this stage, this could basically all just lift off. These lock rings will have a double lock ring with a washer, very fine thread, so you've got to be careful putting them on. Jess will step in now and he'll work his magic. He's going to put a couple of tacks around here and under here, and then this will all become one unit then. It'll be all welded together. He'll flip it over and drop it onto this plate here.
Get your hand out. Sand it on there pretty good.
Jesse slowly fully welded the final drive hubs for both sides, always being mindful not to overheat and warp the pieces, throwing all that careful measuring out. Now all that remains is to fit it to the hull.
Good. Happy with it so far.
Part of what makes this vehicle so special is the way Daryl and Jesse have designed and problem-solved their way through this build, using as many original parts as we have and replicating what is missing as perfectly as possible.
Last one.
The original nylon nuts.
That's it. We don't want it coming loose, do we?
No.
The drive sprockets are exactly how we want them. Now the boys can move to the rear of the vehicle to set up the rear idler system. So the units come back off and we flip the tank upside down to make it easier to work on. This time, we have no original parts to work with for our rear idlers, except the wheels. So once again, Daryl plays Panzer I design and construct.
We didn't have any of this rear idler gear. We've had a few pictures that we've been able to copy. It's very similar to what's on the back of a Panzer IV in the design. So we've kind of just used that knowledge to put into this unit here. This is the axle that will have the actual idler wheel on it, and this is the one that will be on the tank itself. The track will be loose if we go that way, and the track will be tighter as we pull it back this way. We've put one side of the housing in. This is the other side, which will go into the body that we're about to fit onto the tank. So that will give us 2 points for our shafts. One's 85, one's 65. Now we have to work out a way to tension it. On a Panzer IV, they have what's called a Hertz ring. And it's a really intricate piece of machining, which we can't do in-house here.
It's spring-loaded, isn't it?
And it's also spring-loaded. So we've had to come up with something that we can do in-house. So what we came up with was we've made these little gadgets here, 10mm mild steel with 16mm mild steel little blocks fitted into it. They've been placed in to the right height we want. We've tacked the corners, and then Jess has gone along and TIG welded them all in place so they're super strong. That gets bolted onto the housing, so that's fixed at the rear of the tank. This is situated roughly there. We have to get a spline here and one that'll match it here on this shaft. Then we're going to have a thread cut here, and then this will be machined to a hex nut, and that's how we actually tension it and turn it.
So you'll have a tool that locks onto this that enables you to twist it.
Yeah, we'll be able to lift it up as we tension this around.
Excellent.
So with the spline cut in here and here, it will then go on the shaft and engage in these little blocks here, so it'll keep its tension. It's a couple of weeks designing it, turning things on the lathe, getting stuff cut. So yeah, a bit of time involved.
It'll be a couple of months more like.
Let's get that other bit up.
He's too modest to admit it, but Daryl has indeed spent several months designing and turning out all these shafts, collars and axles on the lathe. The ultimate test will be everything going together and working as intended.
Bit of spray on.
So I'm going to put the other one together.
This has to line up exactly with the line the front drive sprocket has given us. For this to work, everything has to be square.
Square against there, what do you think? Well, that doesn't look too bad. It looks straight down there.
Wow, nice one.
That's not going to be too bad for what we want. See how that's easy? Right, pull him back. Right. If I lift that, that's good like that. If you get a tack, say here,
Yep.
and one there, yep.
This holiday, Verizon will turn your old or broken phone into a gift. Trade in any phone in any condition and get Google Pixel 9 Pro with Gemini, an AI assistant from Google.
The heat from welding is warping and pulling the two housing collars out of alignment, which is causing the shaft to bind up. So Jesse is going to cut the welds away and slowly tack his way around the piece, while Daryl tries to hold and wedge it in the sweet spot.
That's the best it's been, right?
Take a break from this unit and move on to the opposite side. Again, starting with alignment.
I'll let you draw, I can't. Right on there?
Yep.
83.5.
84. That's good. Yep.
Right, perfect. Yep. That worked out okay then.
Things line up.
They line up.
Down there, do you want to put one here?
Another one here. That's all right.
The boys got it in one. With a win under their belt, they head back to the first unit.
Oh, well,
How's it feel compared to the other one?
The other one's like it's got bearings in it. Give it a go, Jeff.
And it keeps momentum pretty much.
Dead level.
Very happy with that one.
I think this one's not far off it, but hey, look. It's all trial and error, some of this stuff. So,
It's great when it works out.
These pieces have to have a spline and a keyway cut into them. We don't have that sort of capability here, but Northern Engineering does, and they kindly let me join one of their machinists, Adam, and allowed me to catch the last part of the process. They've already machined the head's head in, cut in the thread, and made a keyway for a locking tab, but there's still a little bit of the spline left to cut. Needs the corresponding spline cut in, but for this, Adam uses a different tool.
Not bad.
Alright. That's comforting. You just got back with them, eh?
Yeah.
Let's see what we've got.
Let's have a look.
I'm really interested to see how they've turned out. I marvel at some of this, how some of these blokes do this stuff, eh?
Looking good, Daryl?
Yeah, well, mate, I'm wrapped with it. This is... Oh, look at that.
Nice.
Brilliant. Yeah, we've got our hex shape at the end. That's so we can actually turn and tighten or untighten the track.
But when you make a tool for it, right?
Yeah, we'll probably just get a big socket. We've got a big socket set here. I asked him to make it to a metric socket, so
yep.
Looks like he's done that.
He's got some thread. Thread in the center.
Yeah, a bit of thread. That's where our two locking rings will go on, and that groove's there to take a lock washer. Ready to go.
Ready.
With these shafts finally finished, Jess can go ahead and test fit them. If they all go back together okay and don't need any adjustments, he can weld them up, assemble, and call them done.
So this is the first piece that we got to put on.
Loosen them a little bit.
Yeah, this is a little stub axle. So that goes on like that. Bit of a collar. Then next up we've got our wheel. Here's one I prepared earlier. Well, we didn't have any original little hubcaps, so we've had to make our own. This edge here just pressures on the outer rim of the bearing. Got a lock ring, a washer, and a nut. And then this one just goes on and gets held on with 6 bolts. And that should have our rear eye run.
So we kept the cameras rolling, and you'll see.
I found my true love. iPhone 12 with 5G, thanks to Metro.
A few weeks ago, we sourced an engine for this project. When it arrived, Steve got to work testing it out to make sure it actually worked.
It's out of I think like a 1996 Toyota Hilux, so it should be perfect for what we want. Good, reliable, reasonable power and torque, easy, simple. Once we put it in, we basically just set and forget it. We're just going to try and jury rig it up so that we can start it and make sure that the thing runs, because we don't want to go through all the effort of building all the mountings, adapting it to the drive system and everything, just to find that the engine doesn't work. This is probably going to look the dodgiest wiring ever.
I don't know if it'll be the dodgiest wiring ever.
Fingers crossed. Let's see if we can make some noise. Instead of going at it like a bull in a china shop, I took a bit of time to look at the wiring plug for the fuel shut-off solenoid and realised that I had the wrong pin connected up, so I've fixed that up. Pump's working, shut-off's connected, starter's connected. Do a little rain dance or a little jig to see if we can get it to start. So it's a runner.
It's a runner.
It's a runner.
How good is that?
We have an engine. Now to mount it.
So this frame is able to be lifted out and lifted back in when we need to. It's going to be bolted to the floor. So our hydraulic motor will be actually driving this vehicle. By doing it hydraulically, we're eliminating the tail shaft. You've got less things that need to be fitted. We can put the motor however we want in this vehicle. We don't have to line it up with the front of it or anything. It can be spun around, which is actually how we're going to be mounting this. Similar to like what a car would be. So with the fan, radiator fan at the front. So this will be the same thing. So we'll be pulling cool air through the vehicle and pushing it out the rear. So we've had an adapter plate drawn up. This part here that we've got made is a socket. You can see it's got like a spline. So this goes onto our hydraulic motor. So that just keys in, just moves in like that and then pushes on like that. So this will be bolted to the flywheel and that will be bolted to the crankshaft. So this is how we're going to be powering our actual hydraulic motor. So we're using the original valve housing. The reason for that being is that Steve, our mechanic, wants to use the original starter motor that came with it. This works by holding it all in place so it will line up on the ring gear to start the engine. It's got some locating lugs on it. We have a local hydraulic guy who supplied all of our parts. He did all the calculations, worked out how much pressure we need, and we've just got to do the part of fitting them pretty much. None of the smart stuff, we leave that for someone else.
Jesse has just finished the engine mounts and is finally ready to fit it to the hull. As you can see, he's finished the bell housing and attached the hydraulic motor system that will be used to power and steer the tank.
Just got to come to the left. Yeah.
Jesse's doing these bolts up with an impact driver for now, but he'll be going over them with a compressed air rattle gun before we close everything up. While Jesse was working on the engine mounts, Daryl was putting the finishing touches on the mounts for the chain drives.
This is our little hydraulic motor. We've just made a little frame for it that we can adjust up, because what we're using is a double link chain, basically just a big glorified bike chain. We can adjust it and make it whatever size we want. So we made this little sliding frame here where it can just slide backwards and forwards. We've tightened up where we want it. We'll lock these bolts in place and put a witness mark on them so we'll know that if they ever move. As we get the tension in the chain, we're probably going to need to use the bolts to pull it tight enough so there's no slack in it. Last thing we want is these chains jumping off while we're driving.
Jesse really has had to take his time welding these mounts in. It's critical that both chain sprockets line up perfectly.
We don't have a lot of room. So we're just going to line these sprockets up with the motor.
How are you doing that?
So we're just measuring off the wall here. So we're measuring to the outside of this sprocket here, and then we're measuring to the inside of the sprocket here.
After carefully checking and rechecking, Jess is happy enough with his measurements to tack it into place. Now Daryl's chain tightening system comes into play.
Keep it over like right over the hole. Yep. Yeah, no, it's good.
Not too tight?
No, just right.
Lindsay and Aidan from Parrot Engineering are fitting all of the hoses from the little hydraulic motor on the back of the engine to the steering unit and then to the chain drives. We know it's not how things would have been done, of course. If we'd have been able to source an original Panzer I gearbox, differential, drive shaft and all in perfect working condition, then of course we would have acquired one and fitted it. Some people will say that it's not even worth going to all this trouble if it's not original. But honestly, myself and everyone here would much rather see this little beauty driving around the track at Oz Armorfest than have it sitting as an empty static display. You might have seen Silvio in previous episodes. He's a German backpacker with an engineering background and has been a fantastic help to Steve and the rest of the crew with some great knowledge.
Like we almost finished the most part of the panel and the relay stuff. We cut the most of this cable off, and then we take every single cable of those out and put it in a single connector, and all those connectors are then like in one socket. So you just have one socket to plug out if you want to remove the whole panel. You also see here that I did some changes because I needed to know how the alternator was functioning. So yeah, that's why we're like
a lot of different revisions.
Exactly.
Yeah. Looks good.
It actually looks really complicated to me, but I'm sure if you know what you're doing, it's very straightforward. With everything wired in, the hydraulic system primed and the engine securely mounted, we decide it's time for a test run. Oh, one thing before we forget.
Let me just check if there's a rag in there.
Liberty Mutual customized my car insurance, so I saved hundreds. But the money I saved, thought I'd get a wax figure myself. Oh, right in the temporal lobe. Beat it, punks! Only pay for what you need.
Liberty, 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 liberty. Hey besties, I'm throwing a holiday party soon, and there's a lot to do between all the decorations, the food, and finding the perfect gift. But thanks to Gemini on the Google Pixel, I've got some help. Let me show you how to put it all together. Starting with the phone, it comes in two sizes, the Google
How cool is that, Daryl?
I'd be happy with that.
Yeah, man. It's a bit unconventional for World War II equipment, but
Yeah.
it'll do the job.
If they could have done it, they would have, mate.
100%. That's what I was just thinking.
For reliability and for what we want this to do, this is the best option.
This is the
And
way.
to find those original parts in running condition, near impossible.
Yeah, forget it.
Yeah.
If only we had our suspension units, then we could have a cheeky drive. But good things come to those who wait.
Speaking of suspension units, let's see how Jesse went about making them up. We could only obtain one original bogie, but we were lucky even to get this one. Without it, we would be relegated to guessing and scaling measurements off model kit instructions and photos. By carefully examining this original unit, Jesse was able to decipher how it was constructed and broke it down into different parts that we could bend, weld, and shape together to replicate it as closely as possible. After drawing up these components in CAD and sending them off to our steel supplier, all that remains now that we have them is to put it all together.
So this piece starts there, comes there, bends down, goes around, goes on the inside, bends up, goes around the pipe, and then finishes through on the end. So we'll bolt that around now. That sits just above. Happy with that.
Tacking.
Tacking.
Yeah, okay, safe for bending it.
Yeah,
Ready to go.
So you can see, so that's that part bent in. We're just joining it.
Oh no, good drill bit, hey.
Yeah, so this is on the end of here, it's got the bump stop, an external one. So what they've actually done is you can see they've heated up here and they've pulled it around on both sides and then they've put a filler piece on the inside.
Oh wow.
I had some plate outside that was accessible, so I've decided to just cut into it, taper it, and we'll just trim these ends and just put that in there like that. Just a hell of a lot easier. actually got some U-bolts that we've found. These go in like that, out the top, and bolt on, and they clamp the spring in.
Yep.
So the spring is actually held in on the end here via the bolt. So that's what we're making now. We've got to make these holders. Drive it through. So the final bit is trimming this a little bit more, just trimming it out, and then just slipping our pieces in that are getting laser cut. It's just a bit of flat plate. We've drawn it so it fits in that shape. So we'll just slide it in and tack it on. But once our pieces go on, they'll bolt on like that. And that holds the spring hanger in.
After a few days, Jesse has all these pieces welded in. There are still a few components to go.
Daryl's spent the last half a week, nearly a week, turning up all the shafts. So this piece here goes in this piece here. So this will be welded in like that. You can see it's got a shoulder it presses up to. This is like a spacer washer crush block. Like that. So you can see they press in firm. This is what comes out of our hull, and this shaft here actually rocks back and forth. So that's our rocker, our main rocker, and then you've got this pin at the back here will actually hold one of the wheels on. So that goes in here. This one again, this one's B. That one's in that way.
We put in the order for our leaf springs in January 2024, and we were initially told they would be a month in production. So when did we get them back?
This holiday, Verizon will turn your old or broken phone into a gift. Anyone can trade in.
Fortunately, we were blissfully unaware at the time, so the boys kept on working on other things.
Working on the rear deck and where the exhaust protective cover comes on and the muffler itself comes out. And as you can see, it's got 3 mounting points. But what we have here is 3 broken off bolts that we're going to get out. That bit just went blunt, eh? Oh, it's engaged, but do we want to quench it or that'll just make it harder?
Quenching it might make it harder, yeah.
No, that one didn't work. That might be a plan B. Got to remember these things have probably been in since 1935, 36, you know, who knows how long they've been in there. No, that's not going to work either.
No go, Daryl.
Nah, no go. We've got one more to try. But try quench it, yeah, give it a go. No, that didn't work. Yeah, I know, these aren't the best things to use. Anybody that's ever used these easy outs knows that it's hit and miss, so.
Nothing easy about it.
No, I'll only snap it off if I keep going. I'll get a little bit of dummy. There we go. Before I weld it. Stick that under the tank.
Oh, sorry, Daryl. Whoops. Okay, one out.
Well, that worked.
There's a little bit of movement.
Oh, hold on. Yep.
Over 80 years.
Yep. And this, ladies and gentlemen, is how you do it. Once you've exhausted all your other ways and means.
Isn't that how you put it in when you did your apprenticeship?
Well done, Jess. Look at that, magic. So what we want to do is now, we've got a bottom tap, 10mm bottom tap. We'll go through and tidy up all the holes. This one had a bit of old grease by the look of it.
How's that grease? You didn't put that on.
No, that's just coming out of it. Look. We don't know where these things have been for the last 70 odd years, what they've done, where they've been.
What's this hole here, Daryl?
Well, I reckon that's the whole reason that they have an armoured protector cover. I reckon that's a bullet hole. You can see where it's done some little cracks there and the bullet's penetrated through there.
Wow.
So,
What is that, 15mm armour? 10mm armour?
it's about half-inch armour on the back. Well, it might be 15, yeah. So,
Wow.
yeah. We're hoping the armour cover will give us an idea of where the centre line is of the muffler. Because we don't actually have anything gives us that measurement at the moment. Yeah. Can you roughly get an...
It took a little bit of skillful workshop geometry, but we eventually found the centre line, and from that we could get to work on building and mounting the muffler.
So I made these brackets before and prefabbed it all and fitted it. So this just pokes in like that. I've tacked that bracket on before, has a bit of a dog leg that goes around and then gets welded onto there. We sourced this, which is the closest thing that we could find. So what we're going to do is we're going to try to squash this in our press a little bit and then just weld some fins in.
Have you got a few? A few backup ones?
Backup ones? No. We got one.
We got one shot at
one
this.
shot at this, so
To get it perfect.
Got to make sure it's right. So what we'll do is we'll tack this on, and once it's actually on the muffler, I can pull the muffler off and we can panel beat and fix this.
That's a great little freehand circle.
Sometimes I cut neat.
Yep. Oh, your earth. Just kidding.
I nearly cried then. Tears are rolling down my face.
Work with me. Please, go up.
Doesn't happen very often, but I'm happy.
Just got it all welded up the next morning, ready for assembly.
Of all the original parts to have survived these last 90 or so years, this one is one of the most remarkable. It's a Panzer I exhaust guard, really beat up, but still usable. Thin material like this is almost always scrapped or has disintegrated into rust. With some careful bashing and heating, the boys get it back into a more presentable shape.
Have a look at that side and you jump over here to this side.
That's pretty good. I'm happy with that. Just a little bit. Yep.
Yeah, leave that there.
With the suspension springs still a few weeks away, Daryl moved on to the mudguards. If you know your German tanks well, no doubt you're already furiously writing in the comments about the pattern of the sheet we've used. Early war German tanks used this special patterned aluminium sheeting. When this episode initially aired, we had some very helpful viewers point out to us that this pattern of sheet is still actually commercially available in Europe, but with the time remaining to us to get the project finished, we decided to use checker plate. Besides that, Daryl handmade all the latches and other details you can see, and you cannot deny he has done a splendid job.
Hey Meta, which of these shots should I take?
You have a few options. Try to hit the yellow ball.
Hey Meta, take a video.
Known for pursuing your passions. No one wants to be known for cancer, but a treatment can be. Keytruda is known to treat cancer. FDA approved for 17.
What do we have here, Daryl?
Mate, what we've been waiting for. Springs. Look at those babies. Very happy to see them.
They're all perfect.
Well, we hope so.
Pristine. So they're the originals, right?
They're the originals. What we had. We didn't want to run the risk that one of the two of them might break, so we've got all brand new ones made. So
gorgeous.
By a local company up on the table here, it's not far from it. So, yeah.
Gee, we've waited long enough, eh?
Yeah, we have indeed. You can see there's a bolt hole here. And that bolt there just drops into it. Right, specially designed tool to go under here. Keep it at the right height. Now I won't over tighten these because we've still got to try and line up to get our axle through on the end. So, let's see if we can struggle with the other one as well.
And that's it. Oh, with the U-bolt now.
Yeah, just the U-bolt. You can see one's higher than the other. I can adjust, pull down on the U-bolt here, tighten it up, and then that'll pull this down to line them up. Because we've still got to put an axle through. This is where the second axle runs through to hold the wheel. The wheel's in here, the one in here. If these are two different lengths, or out a couple of mil, the wheel will be running out of parallel. So we're just going to, once we put the wheels on, we're doing a final adjustment on them. So now I'll swing it around the right way, hopefully. It's pretty tight, this one. You can see now how the bump stop works, where the spring will come up if it hits anything, and work on that bump stopper. We need 10 wheels for this vehicle, and we had 11, but they weren't the world's best wheels, and we're limited. You're just not going to find them anywhere. So you may see some strange things on them, like we've had to actually weld these in because they were missing part of the thread. Once we've got the bearings fitted, it actually weld in these locking rings. We don't have any oil seals in that, so that's why we're using nylon washers. And we only had one of these axles to get a rough idea on how it went, and it was blown apart too, and it's all damaged on the ends and that, so we've had to knock up them. This one on the opposite side we had to manufacture, and at the rear we had original ones. We had a couple of old springs, so we had to get the springs remade. That was an issue in itself, but we've got them now, so hopefully everything's going to come together.
Jesse was away for the week, but luckily Ron was in a bit of a lull with the Grant tank restoration and was able to give Dad a hand.
Do I need a hammer and a punching in, or do you think I can slide it in? Well, you can take it out to start with, and we'll try and line the hole up a bit better. Can you see?
Yeah, you're half the whole way up. There, you're getting close. Yeah, 10 mil, that's it.
The space between the bearings, it's going to have to move up.
So what are we encountering here, Daryl? What's happened?
We're encountering a bit of resistance. We've been trying to hit it through, and I think the spacer, there's a spacer between the two bearings. It's catching on that, it's not riding up on the spacer. And I just want to hone out these housings here. We might have damaged the edges a bit, just trying to get it through.
Yeah.
We can get a shaft through from this side, but we can't get it back through the other way.
Yeah, with the wheel on.
Yeah, so...
Well, make more room.
Make a little bit more room.
Daryl also adds a bevel onto the shaft, just to help it go in even easier.
Oh, look at that taper.
Wheel the wheel up on the wedge a bit more. Leave the swing arm where it is.
Hold on, is it hitting on the... It's hitting in there.
We decided to leave that wheel for now and move on. It turned out there was just a little bit of weld in the way that was easily ground back.
Level now. I like to pre-fit things. So we don't run into this type of thing.
This is the pre-fit.
Yeah.
The fitting pre-fit.
The pre-fit. Out, yep. There's an in and an out. Up or down?
Oh, the suspension unit's you've got to go up by heaps. Up. No.
Well, make up your mind. You want me to go up or down?
You've got to go up by heaps.
That's going down.
Going up. I see the jack going up from here.
I think he's talking about the jack going up by heaps.
I said you've got to go up.
Stop for a second. I'll give it 2 or 3 more minutes. Stop. Right, try to hit that. Stop.
What's coming through?
Stop. Just give a gentle tap. Yep.
So we kept the cameras rolling, and you'll see.
I found my true love. iPhone 12 with 5G.
Right.
Wow, looks good.
Gotta be happy with getting at least one on the W.
A few days later, Daryl got all of the wheels in. Considering we didn't have shop drawings or any kind of design literature to help make all this running gear, you really have to admire the work Daryl and Jesse have done to make all this basically from scratch.
These U-bolts that hold the springs in, if we over-tighten them one way or the other, it will push the wheel off centre. See it moving across or back. So what we're going to do now is very delicately adjust it. See the wheel moving in?
Yeah, yep.
Well, we want to be about 184. So I've got to go through and adjust. See, there's no pressure on that now. So I'll have to tighten up the ones inside. And that should bring the wheel up. So I'm just going to go along and just carefully adjust it, then check them to make sure they're all in line, and it should be good to go.
Should be.
Should be.
All the wheels are on. Now it's time to put the suspension units to the test by taking it off the stands and putting the full weight of the superstructure and turret on. We still have to make the front shock absorbers, but if the vehicle is level and close to the ground clearance that we need, this will be a big win for us. So far, so good.
Just not slipping in yet. Now it is.
The original turret we have, which was the first piece we acquired for the project, was fairly complete and didn't need much work to it at all. It's going to be in a fixed position for now, but if we ever happen across a turret ring that fits, we may consider fitting it in later. Before the boys started going over the track, they give the road wheels and return rollers a bit of a grease up. Daryl also fitted the front shock absorbers on the weekend.
One's a coil, like normal suspension spring you'd see, and the other one's what I believe is an Armstrong system. The coil spring is to take the initial shock, and the actuator arm that works with the pistons is try to assist with returning it either way, just to take some of the sharp shock out of it.
The coil spring was from a hot rod upgrade kit, and we're pretty sure the piston was from a Chevrolet Blitz. This is original Panzer I series track. It was somewhat of a miracle that we were able to acquire the correct amount, but it's not in the best condition. After long use, some track pins can get bent out of shape, and even the holes they go through in the link can get misaligned. Add to that 80 years worth of rust, and it can be very tricky to work with. But once we get it on and take the tank for a drive, it should loosen everything up nicely.
Just check that in that twist in it.
What's going on here? Daryl!
Oh, that's fine. No problem at all.
next day was a big one. The fitting of the track, the first test drive. Firstly, we'll pull the tank onto the track, then hook the end onto the drive sprocket, throw it in reverse, and pull the track on using the power of the vehicle. Well, that's the theory anyway.
That looks different.
In our reference material, it says the vehicle takes 100 links, but this is probably factory fresh new track. Over time, track stretches, and over the length of 100 links, this can lead to a lot of slack. The boys are going to need to take a few links out to get the right tension.
If it moves, we're in with a chance. You sure you don't want to take 3?
We can take 3 if you want.
There's just one little problem. These links haven't been worked on and are pretty tight. It's going to take a lot of elbow grease to get them apart.
Yep, that one's got movement on it.
Pull it. Mickey Juice works.
Ooh.
The mists of forgetfulness.
You can sort of make out how distorted this pin is, which is what's making it so tricky to get out.
Apparently the book is wrong. It says 100.
Here, Jesse is using a thinner piece of round bar to help punch it through. To join the track back up, we're using a set of World War II US Army track connecting tools.
Got your pin started? Yep. Do you want me to put this on this side?
Can't fire out, is it?
No, I think you're going to need it. It's awkward to get in here, but...
Yeah. Good.
Alright, we're in.
Did it! On to the next one, huh?
On to the next one.
Straight out. You could get a job at the Panzer Corps, mate.
This one came out a lot easier because this was a section they joined with new pins earlier.
You've got to have that bend down.
Yeah.
Twas the nights before Christmas. Despite last-minute stress, few were delivering except Walmart Express.
Stockings were hung by the fires with care, knowing in about an hour Stuffers would still be there.
Faster than a reindeer with a red nose. Fast like Bush Rhymes' legendary flow.
Faster, Buster!
Let's go! Here's no end to the nice things you can get. Lego, headphones, I'm gonna get sets, hub, a rep, remote control jack, leggings, watches, pajamas. Use Walmart for all your last-minute needs. You know we gotta get it together for Christmas Eve. Welcome to your Walmart.
you set yours up now on the other side.
It's time.
Thank God.
Without any further ado, after some off-camera track tensioning, it was time for its first test drive. The hill very much, and it's having a little bit of trouble turning on one side. So the boys are going to make a few adjustments to the chain drive, tweak some settings on the hydraulic motor, and let a bit more power out from the engine.
Might need to go tight, and that might help with the
I would say we need to tighten this one.
For the final paint job, we went with Panzer Grey and the markings for the 1st Panzer Division. You might be wondering why we painted a later war bar cross symbol instead of the early war white version, since this is an early tank. Well, that's because on one of our original hatches, some of the paint has survived and shows the same later war variant of bar cross. This makes a lot of sense, since the bulk of our parts came from regions of the former Soviet Union. Everything has been adjusted up since the first test drive. Now it's time to fuel up and get this vehicle out on the track for a proper run, and to give Daryl a go too. after a very successful test drive, there's just one final detail to go.
See the little cutouts there?
Yeah.
Allow it to go past the sight block?
Oh, you're joking.
Yeah. We didn't even notice it until we started. Main one here locks across, clamps in. Another one back. Here they've got a little cover to go above the sight block. Very happy.
Happy, Daryl?
Yeah, very happy. I think Jess and I have done not a bad job.
I agree. I think it's better than just not bad. But
Tony's in the background pointing at him going, and Tony helped out.
Tony helped out as
Helped
well.
out there.
Good on you, Tony. Hey, congratulations. Dazzle looks fantastic.
No, thank you very much.
This project took a lot longer than expected and was extremely challenging. To have engineered so much of the running gear from scratch is a real testament to the skill and talent of Daryl and Jesse. But of course they couldn't have done it alone. The whole team was involved in one way or another, and we all pulled together to bring this little Panzer I back to life. 2025 is shaping up to be an even more incredible year, with some phenomenal projects planned. But that's all we have time for today. On behalf of the entire team at Oz Armour, we hope you all had a safe and Merry Christmas and wish you a Happy New Year. So until next time, I'm Kurt from Oz Armour, and I'll see you on the next one.
Hey, Meta. Take a video.
Eugene! What are you doing? What are you doing?
And Doug.
Whoa, Limu! We're in a parade! Everyone, customize and save hundreds on car insurance with Liberty Mutual. Customize and save!
And then I wake up.
And you have the stream every night?
Yeah, every night.
I see.
Only pay for what you need.
Liberty, 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 liberty.
Hey everybody, welcome back to Diesel Creek. My name's Matt. Behind me, this rusty beauty right here is my 1942 Caterpillar 212 motor grader. If you haven't seen the previous video on this beauty, I picked it up at an auction for $2,500 out the door, and I had visions of getting it resurrected right there in the auction yard and driving it about 6 miles home. Those visions were quickly squashed when I found out that the engine was completely locked up in this unit, and that was not a shock, but I was pretty disappointed. At the auction, I knew this thing had been sitting outside for quite a long time with the exhaust uncovered, so it was definitely a gamble and one that I lost. Thanks to Sam at Scrappy Industries, we were able to get this machine home here to the farm anyways, and in the last video, I shoved it in here in the shop, and we pulled it in here, I pulled the head off the engine, and we found our smoking gun. If you haven't seen that video, the link is down in the description. So at the end of the last video, I filled up the offending cylinder with some evaporust type stuff, and hopefully in today's video, we're gonna be able to get this engine rotating again. And if we are successful in that, we're gonna put the diesel engine back together and start working on the pony engine so that we can get the diesel engine eventually, hopefully, fired up. Anyways, after all that speaking, I'm about winded, so let's just get into this thing. Alrighty, here we are the next day. And look at that right there, huh? I don't know if you guys can tell, it's got a big pool of black sludgy stuff there right in the center. So this stuff has been working all night. I'm gonna go ahead and try to suck it down and see what it looks like in there. I'm afraid if you leave this stuff in there too long, you may actually end up removing material from the cylinder walls, causing low compression. I sucked it out there as best I could. I'm going to put that absorbent pad in here. This is the stuff that I used. Again, I used this on the Jeep engine and now this engine. So if it works, you know what to get. I have heard of people using regular brand Evappo Rust or that WD-40 rust remover specialist stuff. I think they're all kind of the same product. I think this is a concentrated version. It says that you can dilute it. I'm not, but it says you could. So there's a look down inside of there. That stuff kind of blackens the metal. I'm not sure why it does that, what kind of chemicals we got going on here, but I think this stuff's a little on the harsher side compared to an Evappo Rust brand. So I guess this is the moment of truth here. I'm going to go ahead and apply some pressure to the engine. I got this crank in the engine here. I don't know that I'm going to be able to just pop it loose by pushing on it. It's probably going to take a little more extreme measures, but there. I'm jumping on the bar right now. Not jumping, but bouncing on the bar right now. And nothing's happening. So the next step, since it didn't magically break free completely, I'm going to take a chunk of oak 4x4 down there on the piston. And we're going to smack this thing with a sledgehammer. All right, we're going to start off a little smaller and gentler here. Just using a soft blow hammer. Here's why you can't use pine. Alright, I've been going at this head here with the carbide scraper. If you guys don't have one of these carbide scrapers, you don't have to have one, but I tell you what, as somebody that's used razor blades to do this work my whole life, these carbide scrapers are worth every penny. It made cleaning this up a breeze. I just saved the worst for last for you guys. Pretty boring job otherwise, but just, you know, this is heavy rust scale. Watch how easy this thing just plows through this thing. It actually gets it back down looking like a true machine surface again. You do have to watch, and this was kind of my fault here. The hardest thing to do with this is keep it flat. And it's not really hard, you just have to pay attention basically. But you can actually, if you lift it and drag the corner, you can actually scratch the surface, which is what I did there. On steel, you're probably not going to scratch it enough to really make any appreciable difference, which I didn't hear either. This is just very, very minor scratching, but if you were using this on aluminum or something, you could probably cut right through it. You're not going to do that with a razor blade, that's for sure. Alright, so if you don't know, exhaust valve, intake valve. The exhaust valve is where the water invasion came from because the stack was pointed skyward and uncovered for God knows how long. The water funneled right down through this valve and sat in that cylinder and caused our issues here. So this valve I can already see is stuck because right now there's nothing holding it down and there's still a gap around it. So that one is stuck, and the intake valve may just be stuck by association on account of it looks pretty pitted around there. But what I'm going to do is take a hammer and tap on the valve stems of both of these things, and hopefully the intake valve is already free and moves easily. The exhaust valve, well, we'll just see what it takes to get it moving. Just to be clear as well, I'm not just beating on the valve stem. I've got a chunk of brass here. We're bronze or whatever you want to call it, and I will put this on the valve stem on the other side there and beat on this thing rather than directly on the valve stem. So here we go. This is the intake valve first. Oh yeah, intake valve is just fine. Now for this exhaust valve. Wow, even the exhaust valve is not stuck. I can't believe that. It was just rust around the exhaust valve seat that was actually holding that valve out there. After driving it around a few times, it actually set down in there pretty good. Now, if I was truly trying to be as shade tree as possible, I could just leave this in here and run it. And it may or may not seal up enough to get combustion on this cylinder at first, provided we still get the engine turning. We still have to establish that fact. But hypothetically, you may not get combustion here because it's probably not sealing enough to build the combustion pressure you need to ignite the fuel. So after this valve runs and hammers into that seat about 20,000 times though from the engine running on all the other 3 cylinders, there's a good chance that that would eventually seal up and clean itself up enough to start running again. But we got it apart. It's really not hard to drop the valve, clear out, and we'll lap that seat pretty good and make sure it's sealed up nice. That also gives us a better way to clean out the entire exhaust port and make sure it's free of rust and debris. Alright, so we're ready to try to remove this valve from the head. Now there's a few different ways you can do that. Valves are held in by keeper wedges, and in this particular case we have 3 keeper wedges around the stem of the valve, and they just engage between a little lip on the underside of the valve stem and the side of this retainer ring here that holds the spring. So there's a few different ways you can do this. Ideally you have a valve spring compressor tool, and that basically clamps around the head, pushes on the underside of the valve, and then compresses this guy and allows you to remove those wedges. I have one of those tools, however mine is not nearly big enough to do this job. I need to invest in one of those. So there's other ways you can get them out without the tool though, and this is the way that I usually end up doing if I don't have the tool. Even engines that my tool works on, this is just so quick and easy usually that I start with this before I break out the tool. So you just take a socket that's going to fit, you know, around the outside of your spring retainer, and make sure the head is sitting on something flat like your workbench, and it's going to keep the valve from going down any. So when we tap on our socket with a hammer, what we're going to do is actually compress the spring, and the wedges and the valve stem are going to stay in place. So I call this bouncing out the keepers.
When you have Dell AI Factory with NVIDIA, you can feel it. Because your ideas flourish and come to life faster. Your needs are anticipated and met in real time. And your business always keeps moving forward.
For your route, you'll want stronger brakes. Cool.
And you're just bouncing that spring a few times, and when you do that, a lot of times the wedges will just come flying out of there. See, we've got one already starting to come out. There we go. Starting to come. I guess there's probably a chance you can damage the wedges doing this too, so do it at your own risk. There we go. One more hit, and I think we're going to be golden. Yep. Got your spring retainer. In this case, we have our outer spring, and we also have an inner spring. Now we can flip the head over and pull that valve right out of there. Oh, yeah, baby. Look at the nastiness on that valve. We can easily hit that with the wire wheel, clean that up nice. Same thing for the seat underneath here on the head. What a mess. Tell you what, it really doesn't look too bad. I don't think it's going to take a lot to clean up. So the valve seat there actually cleaned up pretty good. I think with a little bit of lapping, it will be just fine. The valve itself, however, though, not so good. I don't think any amount of lapping will ever make that valve seal up properly. So we're gonna have to probably get this thing to a grinder. All right, so I guess it's been a little bit more than 36 hours since I put that solution in the cylinder to try and eat that rust up. The last attempt you guys just saw of me trying to get this thing freed up was about 24 hours ago. Back again, and we're gonna give it a go here. I was talking to some buddies and they said to get some mechanical advantage on it rather than just using that bar up there, it might be smart to engage the pony motor, which I've already done. But basically this lever engages the Bendix, so that connects the gears from the pony motor to the flywheel of the diesel engine. And then this clutch here, you just push this forward, that engages the clutch. So now these should be locked together and I just have to spin. Now as I spin the flywheel on the pony engine there, that's kind of trying to go back and forth on the diesel. The advantage to using the pony engine is A, it's gear reduced, so you're getting some more mechanical advantage. And B, with this bar here, the way the flywheel engagement is, it's ramped. You probably can't see it in there, but the bar can only turn one direction. So I can shove down on it, but if I try to go backwards to turn the engine the opposite way, it just pulls out of the slot that it's engaged in. So that won't work for, just trying to wiggle it back and forth, because if you do get this thing to start turning a little bit, it's not just gonna go boom and break right loose and start spinning perfectly. Basically the rings are gonna have to self-clearance and cut a little bit of rust out of that cylinder. So anyway, I'm gonna quit yakking about it and we're gonna go ahead and try and shake this thing around for a little bit and see if we can't get it loose. I know this is a bit of a goofy camera angle here, but I'm trying to give you guys a view of both cylinders. So this is a good one. Obviously this is our bad one. And this, it's just gonna be a little bit harder to see movement out of this one because we still have that solution in there. Whereas this one, I think you could probably see it a little easier. But I'm just gonna start wiggling this thing and hopefully something happens. Oh, she's totally moving. Yes. This is awesome. I had confidence. And see, in doing this the way that I'm doing it, I'm not putting a ton of force into the piston and potentially breaking the rings if you put too much force all at once. So this back and forth like I'm doing should just kind of work things loose. It's gonna take a little while, but I think we can get it completely turned over now. Watch the fan there, you'll see the fan moving. Huh? Huh? Yeah, that's what I'm talking about. Oh baby, this thing's gonna run. I'm excited now. I'm feeling very, very confident that we're gonna have a running grader on our hands. Unfortunately, there's no clearance between the pony motor and the cab for me to get a wrench onto the flywheel here. So I just gotta keep wiggling it by hand, which is probably good, keeping things a little more delicate anyway. All right, we got this thing moving a little bit here. I got it down about an inch from where we started. I'm trying to get it all the way to the bottom of the stroke, and then we're gonna put the hone in it, clean all this junk out of it so that we can actually have it come back up and make a full revolution. Again, the rest of the cylinders look great. It is just this one. There we go. I got it past the sticky part. Hope you guys can tell. That should be about the bottom of the stroke right there. Yep, right there. Bottom of our stroke. Oh. Check that out, huh? Yeah, that doesn't look too bad at all. We've got a pretty serious rust ring right there at the bottom of all that gunky looking area. But man, it's good below that. So I'm gonna scrape it out of there as best as I can, and then we're gonna put the hone in there, try to clean it up with the hone, and then see if we can't get this thing to make a full revolution. I know a lot of you guys aren't gonna like what I'm doing here right now, but I'm scratching off the heaviest bits of rust here, right at this ring where it was stuck. And I'm doing that so that we can put the hone in there and not just junk up the hone, but actually cut the cylinder. If I tried to run the hone through this heavy stuff, it probably would just glaze it over and not really cut it. There's probably a tool that would, but I don't have one. Soak this baby down with some real thin oil. Honestly, I could probably just make the first few passes dry. Try to cut as much of this crud as possible. Alright, so I've actually done this like 3 times now. The stones very quickly get gummed up with that crusty junk, so I clean it off with brake clean. Looks like we're almost through the glaze that's on here. See, this is what those stones look like after just that few passes. Can't even see the stone anymore, it's just nastiness. I can feel the cylinder's definitely pitted up pretty darn good. Right there at that spot where we were scraping the crusties off. But I guess that's to be expected. You know, as long as this thing holds combustion pressure and doesn't let combustion gases down into the crankcase, it should be fine. And that seems to be what the scenario is looking like here. The bottom of the cylinder being good and the top of the cylinder not being as good. You know, it'll probably still fire and run on this cylinder, but definitely going to have lower compression here than the other 3. Finally starting to see some polished metal in here. Oh yeah, she's pitted up pretty good. Well, I don't know how well you guys can really see in there, but I think that's about as good as we're going to get it. I'm not going to pretend that that's ideal, but well, it should be good enough to run it, and that's really all we're trying for here. I don't think this machine is worth sinking a ton of money into. You know, you could put another liner and a piston and ring in this side over here, but you know, once you go that far, you might as well replace all 4 of them. Then you might as well strip it all down to every little nut and bolt and sandblast and paint it. And well, that's just really not what I had in store for this thing. Maybe somebody else does, but not this guy. All right, we got that thing cleaned out as best as we can, and it is time to see if this engine's gonna make a full revolution. I'm confident that it will. Should be a lot easier now with that cylinder cleaned up quite a bit. Oh yeah, look at that. For the first time in the good Lord only knows how long, that piston all the way at the top. The piston itself looks fine. I'm sure the rings are probably stuck. It might take a little bit of running and some heat cycles to get that compression to come up at all on that middle, on that cylinder in particular. Ooh, what's going on here? We just hit a wall. I don't know what the heck's going on now, but we're hitting up against something here. I'm suspicious about, because I'm I'm turning over this engine here using the Pony engine. I don't think we're having any issues with the diesel engine now. It seems to be spinning fine. I am concerned that maybe the Pony has something wrong with it, but I was able to spin it all the way over before, so I don't know. Something is strange right now. Yeah, see right there, I don't know what that is. Maybe it's something, maybe the teeth on the flywheel are rusted up or something, just got some debris in them, but I am hitting solid up against something right now. I'm gonna see if I can make a full 360-degree revolution with the engine crank, the hand crank that we tried before. Yep, she hits solid there too. What the heck is holding this thing now? Right there's where it locks up.